a healthy density of bears is like 1 per square mile. And so they're not designed to be in close proximity to one another. You're always competing with natural foods. And so at the time that we were baiting, the reason it was so good was because there were no natural foods competing with us at the time.
What is up, everybody? Mark on the mic, and we are about to bear down on another great podcast. I'm joined by Mr. Kolby Morehead, owner, operator of Bear Hunting Magazine. And Colby, today we're going to talk a lot about, we'll talk about you and what you have going on with the magazine, but we're also going to talk about hunting one of the absolute coolest critters that roams the woods.
Yeah.
I always say I should talk about bear hunting less because actually,
you should shout it from the rooftops, man, or the mountaintops.
Right.
That's where they are.
Exactly. It's so cool. I think it's one of the last remaining super cool hunts that I guess that doesn't get the credit it deserves at times. I think as hunters, we focus a lot on deer and elk and other critters, but man, bears, they should be in your hunting mix.
It's true. I mean, especially like they're a great addition if you're a Western hunter to be able to go out to the same areas that you would be elk hunting later in the year. Like it's great for getting out there, getting after some big game, and also getting used to an area that you'll draw or be around later in the year.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. That's a mini hot tip there. I hunted elk with a buddy of mine a few years ago, and we saw a lot of bears in the fall.
Yeah.
We came back and we spring bear hunted it, and we got 2 bears. So again, it's like using that scouting time. If you're seeing bears in an area where you may be hunting deer or elk, pay attention.
Yeah, and the opportunity for a black bear hunt is so much easier to get a black bear tag, especially in these wild areas, than you can some sort of ungulate tag or cervid tag.
Yeah.
Like most Western states have really great opportunities for over-the-counter,
Oh, 100%. I mean, I did a hunt last year. Maybe we'll talk about it a little bit later, but it was a fall hunt up in the Alpine, absolutely breathtaking country, backpack style hunt, some of the roughest stuff I've been in, just absolutely epic. We saw more goats than we did bears, right?
Yeah.
Like we only saw 2 bears the entire week. Ended up getting one on the last day of the hunt. But you talk about like these other species, like a premier species like a goat hunt. That's a once in a lifetime tag. Well, I got to essentially go on a goat hunt
and enjoy it
with a rifle in my hands, but it was just for bears.
Yeah.
So I don't know. The places they live, the places they take you, like you said, the opportunity. I'm sure we're going to get into the different methods of take today. There's not a species that I think offers the variety of places that they live and the forms of pursuit.
Yeah. And it's like, it's across its East Coast and West Coast, and in the South. The other thing I like is the fact that if you do want to do a spring Western hunt or a Western hunt, there's a lot of opportunities where most of those guys are hunting, they're driving down, going down roads. It's not always like that backcountry style. So even if you weren't loaded out, wanting to go deep for several days, like there's still opportunities to go ride around glass, be in some wild country. They have there's some really good road systems to where you can get out there. And I would say the majority of people that live there and hunt bears, that's what they're doing is they're going driving roads, waiting for the bears to be out, glassing, and just being out in nature and having a good time,
Yeah, 100%. My first bear hunt was, I guess I'd say my first out-of-state bear hunt was a Western bear hunt. And that we were just day hunting, right? But again, using logging road systems, sometimes driving, sometimes finding a gated logging road system we could hike back in on. That was our access point to glass or stalk or, look for sign. And then, sometimes when you find a bear, that's when it takes you, off trail, if you will.
Well, that's what I like to say is I like to talk about how there's a difference between being in really physical form to where you're recovering quickly versus going out there and being able to do a single feat of strength. I think most of us can do like that feat of strength where you're going out, you're real casual, but when it's go time, you go, you get it done, and then you come out. And it's like you can do that one hard press, whereas like someone that's going in the backcountry, they have to build up that ability to recover, that ability for their body to, just recover, get out there and just keep going and endure. So I think there's a little bit of difference there. So it's like a Western bear hunt might not, like a deep going back there, hiking several miles, might not be in your wheelhouse, but you could car camp and go out there, ride some roads, do a bunch of glassing. Even if you just walk a couple 100 yards off of the road into a new spot, like you'll see stuff that other guys won't. And
100%.
you just have to be in the right spot at the right time,
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where really just a little bit of different perspective. Like you said, you go down the hill, you go up the hill a little bit, you get a little bit of a different look at some country that other guys aren't seeing. That can make a big difference. Let's talk a little bit about you and your background and how you ended up owning Bear Hunting Magazine.
It wasn't in my foresight. I was born in East Texas, and so I was raised, and we did everything outdoors. Whenever I was born, my dad was a commercial fisherman, and he was, doing some stuff inside the fur trade, like trapping and stuff.
What did he commercial fish for?
It was gar and a lot of catfish.
Okay,
too.
Cool.
Yeah. And then they got rid of netting in Texas around that time, and so we had to go find a different pursuit. But I was raised, just running the rivers, running lines. We hunted everything that we could: ducks, hogs, deer, dove, whatever we could. And bears were never on my radar because it just wasn't something that was in the area. Like if somebody said that they saw a bear, it's like, man, you're full of it. That's like saying you saw a mountain lion down here, which other people said the same thing.
Right.
But it's crazy just over in Arkansas, just a few hours away. It's like they had this good bear population. And so the former owner of Bear Hunting Magazine, Clay Newcomb, I had known him for several years. Like I think I met him back in 2007, and we just kind of like kept in contact. And he bought the magazine back in 2013. And whenever he did that, it kind of like, okay. And so I just started subscribing to the magazine and just let them pile up in the, corner of the house because I wasn't interested. I just wanted to support a friend. And then he started doing videos too, and I'm, oh, okay, you can't eat these? Because I was always raised that you don't kill anything that you don't eat unless it's a coyote, And once I found out that they were good for eating, it's like, oh, well, that might be worth traveling for. And I think it was in 2018 I went with him on a bear hunt in the far northern part of Manitoba, and I just got hooked. There's just something special about a shadow walking through the forest. It's like there's a sense of mystery that I don't know. It was like wild. It was like seeing a dinosaur or something. Something that was so far outside of my being raised up that I didn't encounter. And man, they could kill me too. Just knowing it's like. It's not really in like a black bear's nature, but just knowing that it's like they're these really powerful, critters, and that they came in and they were just super silent. There's nothing quite like them. I don't think I've ever had a deer sneak up on me like a black bear that wasn't even really trying to be super quiet. They just were.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely something. They're just an incredibly cool animal, and in my experience, they're just not something you see unless you are looking for them. I mean, definitely you can be driving down the road and there's a bear on the side of the road. I mean, that definitely happens. But I grew up spending a lot of time hunting deer and elk, and I know we were in bear country, but I think because I wasn't necessarily looking for them, we just didn't see really any of them.
Yeah, or thought they were stumped.
Yeah, right. Yeah, probably looked over them, right? Or if unless you're pursuing them with the hounds or you're baiting them in, creating that focal point in the woods where you are going to see bears. Like they're just not something that you see very often. Yeah. And then you grow up in country where you don't really have them, and you're seeing this thing for the first time that in some ways might as well be just out of a storybook or the pages of Bear Hunting Magazine. You're like, whoa, I'm here right now and I'm seeing this thing. These are cool.
Yeah, I mean, even bear biologists. They haven't really seen a lot of bears out just wandering. It's whenever they're trapping them, whenever they're like going on these, den visits or finding them in dens when they're intentionally looking for them. But they spend a ton of time out in the wild, in the forest where they know the bears are. And not just bears, but like a heavy density of bears, like areas they know they're there. You just don't see them because for one, their nose is, uncomparable, to anything around here at least, and several times that of a whitetail. And
I mean, I think there's several times that of like a bloodhound.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's pretty wild. And so I mean, I don't know, a bear. I mean, they really are like a shadow, you know. And if you're inside of an area that has like that eastern deciduous forest, heavy canopy cover, not these open, you know, spaces, you just would never bump into a bear by happenstance. You know, maybe if you were you would when you were deer hunting, like maybe it's dry, you're sitting over water, or you're in a good batch of white oaks where there's a bunch of acorns on the ground, and you know, they will be in the same areas as those deer, you know, because that hard mast is calling them to that area. You know, their stomach will be the thing that betrays them, you know.
Yeah.
Stomach or water. But you just won't see them. I mean, I don't know what a healthy population of deer is, but it's in the tens of deer per square mile. And the healthy density of bears is like 1 per square mile.
Sure.
You know, and so they're not designed to be in close proximity to one another. So, I mean, you're really looking for a needle in a haystack, even though it's like a good density, but you just won't see them. You're not going to see them in your neighborhood typically, unless it's a dry year, there's no food, and they're in your bird feeder, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Where have you hunted bears before?
Man, so I've been out on the West Coast, up in Oregon, Washington, you know, down in Arkansas, back home, up in Maine. I'm going later this year to Georgia, and I've been up in like Manitoba, you know, just up in Canada. Yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty, you know, like we were talking about earlier, it's a pretty vast area where you're hunting bears, and definitely a lot of contrast between the areas. I've hunted bears in a variety of states, landscapes, Washington, Montana, Idaho, Alaska.
Forgot Montana.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. Sweet. British Columbia. All a little bit different styles of hunts. You know, coastal hunt was a boat-based hunt, primarily focusing on beaches. And then, you know, up into the gnarliest mountains that I've ever been in my life. And, you know, British Columbia was pretty flat, and all the hunts kind of had their own very intrinsic, you know, landscapes and, you know, the methods that you were doing to find the bears. The critter was pretty much the same, but definitely not acting different, but I guess acting differently based on the landscape that they were in.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. Well, even their preference of food changes. You know, like, you know, if we talk about baiting bears, not all bears will come into a donut like people think, you know, especially like, so what they found, there's a good developing population of bears down in southern Arkansas. And up in northern Arkansas, they would be able to get a bear in with sweets pretty easily. But down in the south, where they haven't had like, those bears are conditioned more like they're tearing up deer feeders and stuff, and they're used to like eating corn. So they tried to get them in using sweets, and those bears just didn't care for it. You know, they didn't come to it at all. Yeah, but deer corn, they would just, you know, be right in on it. And then you'll go to areas. So like if you go further up north, like, you know, towards the Canadian border and stuff, those bears would eat more. Like they could put bits of meat, like different carrion inside of it. And bears down where we are don't really care for, like, you can't bait with a beaver carcass or something like you could further up north. And so even a bear's palate is different depending on the region that they're in, you know. And you can even find that from one draw to, you know, a county over, you might find that bears key in on different things. We've even heard stories of them going and picking out certain colors of, like, gummies, you know, if you put a gummy bear there, or a Jolly Rancher, and it's like
the irony.
They'll go for just particular ones, you know.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm glad you rolled into this, because that's definitely one of the main things that I wanted to talk about today. As far as, you know, like we've got, you know, your various methods of take. You know, spot and stalk. You can hunt with hounds. You can bait. All super cool. We've talked a lot about spot and stalk on the podcast. We've done a little bit about hound hunting, a little bit about baiting, but not a lot. And I think there's a lot more to it, just like as you were going into that, than people think. Like you said, it's not just a matter of, hey, let's dump some donuts on the ground and wait. Like there's a lot that goes into where you're putting it, where you're putting your bait site, why you're putting it there. Heck, there's, different regulations, depending on the state. Can you have a barrel? Can you not have a barrel? Food sources, timing. So, man,
locating it, yeah.
Let's get wide open with this thing.
Yeah.
Let's talk about baiting bears. If a person lives in a state where they can hunt bears, or maybe they're going on, even a guided bear hunt up in Canada, but they want to know, I guess, know what's going on versus just, hey, I sat here and it came out and bang, right? Like, I mean, I think as a hunter, we're always searching for knowledge and curious about the why behind all these things that are happening. So I know you've hunted bears over bait a lot. I've done it a little bit one time on one trip. It was in Idaho, so it was kind of like we were doing some spot and stalk and some baiting, which I will say with my one experience doing that, I was like, I wonder if this is going to be like, super exciting or not exciting or whatever. Dude, I had a sound 2 cubs come in. Like, my heart was beating as hard as any other thing I've ever done. Like it was incredibly cool. So let's talk. Let's talk
about it. So, and the cool thing is too, is I get to work with a lot of great outfitters from up in Canada, and so I get to pick their brain. And I did a podcast on our podcast last year where I talked to several different outfitters about like their bait strategies, because there's these guys, particularly I know a lot of outfitters there in that Duck Mountain region of Manitoba, which is the southwestern corner, so just over the border, and then another on the western side of those ducks, it goes over into Saskatchewan, and so it's kind of in that Riding Mountain area. And so I talked to these 3 different outfitters about the strategies they use, and they all use different strategies. They all bait with different things, and they just found like what works for them. And they're within probably 4 hours spread across. It's not that far I mean, it's the same kind of landscape and everything. And you would even think the same group of bears, but some of them use like oats with grease and might put some bits of meat inside of there, but they're heavy on the oat side. And then you have another outfitter that's all corn, and then he'll have like a smaller, like 30-something gallon drum that has like bacon grease in it he's collected. And then the other one, he uses sweets, and so it's this wide range. And they all get like exceptionally huge bears, and a lot of bears on bait. But it's like specialized they just all found the thing that works best for them inside of that area. And so just wanted to show that it's like a bear's preference can be way different, even inside of that close area. And so for us, I can talk about my bait 2 years ago, because it was just a bait of a lifetime down in Arkansas. And I worked harder to get this bear than I've worked on getting any bear. I would say that baiting a bear is really hard work. Like, people make it sound simple, but there's a lot to it. And so kind of the strategy inside of this is it was a track, and there was a lot of national forest in the area. There was like a section of private that was surrounded by national forest. And so, but there's also a lot of guys in those private areas that we know are bear hunting, so it's not like we didn't have competition. It was just a good dramatic landscape. And so the closest I could get the truck to where we wanted to bait, what we wanted to do is we wanted to be up 3/4 of the way up this mountain on a kind of a flat bench. And to get there, like, I don't even think I could get a mule down in there. And we were packing everything in on frame packs. And we had a 55-gallon drum that was for whatever I collected at the time, donuts. And then the other thing is, like, bears are very curious. And so every time I went in, I would take something different, like some sort of different, like, surprise. One time it might be granola, another time it might be Pop-Tarts, or just something like that. Just like, what's he going to bring in next? Because I think if you can capture kind of like that curious nature, you get a little bit of an edge.
Okay.
Because they wrestle stuff, they play with stuff, like, it's just fun. I might even put like a hammock up and just see what they do. You see them getting in hammocks all the time. Like, I don't know, maybe it'd be fun. What if we put a Christmas tree out there? Like, what would they? Anyways, but I would just keep kind of surprising them.
Pop-Tarts, that sounds like a pretty nice Saturday.
I just want to give them a good time. But this bait, it was an 1/8 of a mile trip, to there and back from my truck. And we changed a couple 100 feet in elevation over that trip. And every time we would go, we figured there was about 600 pounds that we were taking there and back. So a really hard day of packing.
So how many trips were you making in a day then?
So like I was making, if I was by myself, it'd be about 6 trips.
Wow. Okay.
If somebody else would split that in half, but every time that I was going, I mean, I was carrying them downhill, so it's not, I wasn't carrying the heavy weight up, but every trip was about 100 pounds. Like
Wow.
say 2 sacks of corn or a sack of something else over the top.
And what did you like? What did you like about that bench? And then like what things were in proximity to that bench that made you feel, I think this is a berry spot. Yeah. Like they're gonna want to be here. They're gonna find this.
So
right?
One thing is bears they're tough, but they're lazy. Like they can go up something like this and it's not a big deal, but they're kind of lazy. Like if they can walk a flat spot, they'll walk it. Like when you go out west, like switchbacks are great, or some like remote road behind a locked gate. And so they like to follow those types of benches. It's like, and the thing about it was a natural pinch point. And so we went off the top, and my buddy that owns the property has a cabin that was on the top part, and we didn't want to get it too close to his cabin.
Gotcha.
So we were trying to stay away from like teaching them that close to the cabin means something good,
Right.
And but we went down, and he had bears on camera on this bench before. And so we were like, well, 2 + 2 equals right there, And so we set that bait up there, and there's some bear trails that were going down. So there was this dramatic drop-off, and this was on his property line, but there's a dramatic drop-off that goes down into a water feature. And so if they go over, they could go around that and drop down and up in different areas on both sides of it. And so they had access to water where they could go down, come up, and then further down the bench, there's a pond. And so the only water we knew of was also either on this bench, or if they wanted to come up here, they could. So it was just the easiest place to travel, and it was just a natural travel corridor, So I really like it where you have something dramatic and then something flat and, not up to where everybody else is hanging out and stuff. And, man, I mean, they hammered that bait. I mean, I'd have to go every 3 days, and it was empty or just about empty, And I think that's one of the secrets too, or not a big secret, but you always want to keep food there. Like you never want a bear to come into a bait and not have some sort of caloric value there, even if it's just something as empty as the corn. But man, I mean, it's crazy because for a full month, it felt like a full-time job just keeping that thing busy. Because not only are you having to go in, you have to make the trip there, you have to do all of that carting back and forth, but you're also having to source the bait, and you can either go and buy it from someone that sells it as bear bait, or go find something that some store is just trying to get rid of. I had a contact at a donut shop to where I was getting their leftovers every day. And which means I had to go there every day when they were done, and it's just there's so much work on the back end too, and on top of that, it's like the way that you go about baiting a bear is the first bear is the hardest one to get because you use that to go after to get the other bear's attention. So one of the reasons we use a lot of grease inside of it, and that grease it's real sticky. You get it on you and it just won't come off, And so we do that. We'll use some sort of cooking oil, and we'll mix it with a commercial scent that's just super sweet. We use a product called Gold Rush by Northwoods Bear Products, or a Wisconsin company.
Nice.
Yeah, not far from here. And those bears will get that scent on their pads, and then they will go and distribute it, So whenever they go to get water, they're like taking that sweet smell with them all the way down to that water. And so it's kind of just broadcasting out. I mean, and this bait took off, and I've never seen another bait do quite what this one did. And it's cool, though, whenever a bait's doing really well like that, you can get your buddies to go with you to help, because it's like, hey, they've been on it. We've been seeing bears when we go to this bait. And so you can get your buddies that.
And you look like you have a strong back, so let's go.
I got a spare backpack and some good music in the truck. Let's go. But a lot of guys saw their first bears like helping me bait that bait. And one of them in particular is my buddy named Colby. It's spelled the same way as me, and so it's just, Colby and Colby. And we went out there and backed the truck up, and he had never seen a bear before. And I was like, all right, well, instead of just loading up first, let's just ease over and we'll look over the edge and maybe you'll be able to see a bear, you know. And so we walk up and lean over, and he's a little behind me, and a bear takes off, and he doesn't see it. And I'm like, you didn't see that? Dang, man.
Did it take – could you see the bait from there, or was it just in the area?
He wasn't on the bait, but he was either – I think he was leaving the bait.
Okay.
Or coming back to it, but he was somewhere in between where we were and the bait.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, he was probably only 50 yards from where I was, like, peeking over. But he took off, and I was like, man. I thought you would, you know, it's too bad you didn't see it. That would have been cool. And so we go back to the truck. We're putting on our packs, and we look up, and there's a bear coming directly for us. And it's like, this is not normal. This is weird. And so we were at the truck, and this bear is just coming straight for us down the same path that we just walked. Like, he smelled us. Like, this is weird. The odd bear behavior, you know. And this was only the second or third time that I'd gone out there and baited. So it's not like he would have been conditioned for this or anything.
Right.
And so he comes within probably 12 yards of us to our left, and he just lays down by a tree. And he's acting like he doesn't even care that we're there. Like, it's wild. I've got video I'll show you later.
That is bizarre.
Photos, yeah. And I was like, this is just weird. I was like, something might be wrong with this bear. Am I going to shoot this bear? You know, like, I don't want to go through all this. And anyways, we tried to pressure him off, and he actually bluff charged us. And I was like, this is just not normal black bear behavior. And but then he sits down, and the one thing about bears, like, they don't like any sharp sounds that just happen out of the blue. So, like, I've had bears I've talked to out of the stand or, like, shouted at, and they wouldn't even look at you, you know. You snap a twig, and they're like, what is that? You know, because that's what a big boar does when he comes in. He's breaking saplings and twigs and stuff. Like, he wants you to know he's coming. He's coming in saying, I'm the big guy. And those bears pay attention to stuff like that. And so I picked up a rock, chunked it over behind him, and he was like, what was behind me? I didn't know that was there, you know. And then I was able to push him off. I'm like, he's going to break into my truck, though. He's not gone. And he did. Like, I locked up the truck, including the bed cap. Walked down and did the first round of baiting, came back up, and the back of my truck had been popped open. And I mean, it's like, and I locked this thing, you know. He just forced it open. And we walk up, and I was like, did he get anything? He had taken a bag of dog food, a 50-pound bag of dog food. And I was like, that joker. And then my buddy looked over beside us. He's like, there he is. You could see that dog food because it was a white red bag.
Yeah.
And he was probably 80 yards out there. So I just take off after him, run him off, and, like, get the dog a bag of food, right? And I'm like,
your stuff back.
Yeah, and I'm like, that joker. And I never thought my life would lead towards, like, chasing a bear off of a bag of dog food, you know. So, anyways, we finished baiting without any happenstance. He was gone after that, but it was kind of a fun scenario. But we would go in there regularly, and it was always juvenile males, like it was younger male bears. And so I figured, and the thing that we were reasoning is that there was such a density of bears on this particular bait that we think they were pushing the younger bears were kind of getting pushed off and beat up by these bigger bears, like coming in and getting the pristine, like they sat where they wanted, and those other guys had to settle for crumbs. And we think they were getting so much pressure from these larger bears that they were pressuring us a little bit, you know. And anyways, I ended up taking a really solid bear that year. After a full month of baiting, we're guessing he's somewhere around the 500-pound mark.
That's a big bear, man.
He was huge. It was all that two of us could do to try to roll him over.
That's a different animal right there. I mean, I've shot a handful of bears, some pretty big ones, and some, you know, I guess like your typical black bear. But when you get a bear that's in that, you know, 400 or 500-pound range, like that's a different critter, man.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is I've done several outfitted hunts. I've been to really great areas, but the biggest bear that I've taken was over my own bait in, you know, Arkansas.
That's pretty cool.
You know, and so I kind of wear that badge with honor. It's like, hey, I put in all the work, and I know what it's like, and, you know, and it paid off. But I was really selective. I mean, opening day, I think we counted like 15 or 17 individual bears, And then we had over 20-something occurrences. And the way that we know about how many individual bears we saw is in this particular area, most of the bears have some sort of chest patch. And the chest patches were different, their sizes were different. And so we're like, we saw at least 15 different bears, and we counted, I think, 22 in all. And I ended up getting that one close to the end of the day. You know, it was probably like an hour before the end of last light.
What time of day were you going into bait?
So one thing about baiting is you're conditioning the bears to be used to you. You know, you don't want to throw something out of the blue. And so whenever I would go out, I would always go out midday when I planned on going to my stand. And so I was really consistent around, you know, going in around that noon, 1 o'clock. And I didn't care how long I stayed, but I wanted to go in at the, you know, same time.
Okay.
I'd make a lot of noise. I would play music, you know, at times. I just wanted to announce that I'm there. And then at the end of that, I wanted them to have something that's like of value that I left for them. And so I'm conditioning them to a point of like, it's not conditioning them to the bait. I'm getting them used to like my presence out there because we had them heavy in there. Like I've got videos of 7 adult bears on this bait. It was just unreal. And so I wanted them used to me, but if anything else came out there out of the blue, they would just like disperse, you know, and I'm getting them used to me coming to that particular spot and out. And once I got my bear, we went back the next day to try to get one for my buddy, the landowner, and all the activity was gone. Like it just shut down. And what we think happens is we go out there to the area that they're used to us being in. And then once I got this bear, which we only went an additional 60 yards to where he went down, but we think that type of disturbance was so much out of the ordinary and what they were conditioned for and used to that they all just like, we're done with this place, you know. So it's not like we were making these tame bears or making it to where they wanted to be around people or anything, you know. It was just like there was something about that spot. Just like I know there's spots where there's like community garbages where people dump, and it's like a lot of people, the only place that they've seen a bear is at that area because those bears are used to that particular spot. You know, people come, put stuff that they get some sort of reward out of it.
And they haven't had a negative experience. Like,
yeah.
What, did the bears come back after a few days, after it settled down?
You know, we just left it alone after that.
Okay.
Yeah. So whenever we're hunting these seasons for bait, especially inside of Arkansas, you're always competing with natural foods. And so at the time that we were baiting, the reason it was so good was because there were no natural foods competing with us at the time, you know. And so you give it a little bit more time, and then all of a sudden, like you're always fighting that mass crop coming off. And it wasn't long after that mass crop would come off. And it felt like a losing battle, you know, a losing thing to do. And the other thing is, like, the day that I hunted, we went ahead and did a full bait up, you know, so that they were used to we were there for a reason before we hung the stand and sat in there. But, yeah.
You said a couple things earlier, you know, you're talking about putting in the work and having that be, like, super rewarding. And I think we touched on that, but the amount of work and time that goes into maintaining a bait is actually what's in some ways prevented me from doing it. You know, you got a draw tag here in Wisconsin. I think I've got a handful of points, but I'm always like, if I want to hunt bears, I'll just go over here and I'll hunt bears and I'll buy an over-the-counter tag and, you know, generally a spot and stock hunt. I'll burn a week of vacation. I know I've got the tag. I know I can go, and I know I've got this week to hunt because, you know, it's like you got work, you got family, you got, you know, kids and sports and things like that. The time commitment and the effort to keep a bait going is like insurmountable. Like, you better want it.
Yeah. It was wild.
And like you said, you have to even just procure the bait, make connections, you know, visit with people. Can I get your sweets from the bakery? Can I do this? Oh, you've got grease. Okay, well, guess what? Can I get some of that?
Yeah.
It's crazy. The other thing you mentioned was, you know, keeping it full or keeping something there. Like, what's going on there? Is it if they clean it out, and mentally they're like, yeah, it's gone. I'm going to leave now.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think what it is when you're hunting bears, even spot and stalk, in the south or a heavy, area of dense cover, they're going to go in and key in on a particular food source, and they're going to stay on that until that food source is gone. For the most part, and so I think it's one of those things where it's like they know there's food there, and they're going to stay there and close to it until that food source is gone, and then they'll go and roam and find something else. And I think it's as simple as that. Is I don't think they're going to be like, oh, well, it'll magically like grow more food. I think it's like, oh, this is tapped out on to the next spot is kind of the way it seems. And I'm not saying that it would be fruitless to bait again. You still have that scent strode out across, the area. Like bears will find it if you have bears in the area. So it's worth it to bait it again, but you might lose the bears you already had on that particular bait.
Okay.
So it's not like you have to, keep bait there the whole time or it's just like no good, but you don't want to lose that momentum. Like there might be a bear, you just want it to stay like a day later or like a couple days more, so that you might have an opportunity that you might not have otherwise.
Do you think they remember like year to year? Like if like this sounds like a really great spot, right?
Yeah.
So if you're going to hunt this spot year to year, or if you're in a western state that allowed bear hunting, or wherever that you're hunting bears, like almost like generationally, like do they remember like about every spring about this time the food shows up here, and I better at least go check and see if it's there again this year?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think it might just be a spot that they know, because maybe a sow bear. Because whenever a sow has cubs, whenever those cubs hit their maturity part where she's going to kick them off, so like they'll spend 2 different years in the den with that sow. The male bears, the male cubs that she has, she will chase into the next county. Like she will not allow them to be in the same range as she's in.
Gotcha.
The female bears she'll allow to be around. So a male bear, I don't think a male cub would remember that and come back to it. Like he's probably not going to return, but a female bear probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Have you had a bear show up year to year where you're like, I remember that bear from last year?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's common. That's really common for guys to track bears for several years. And we see that inside of the articles all the time, inside of the magazine, where guys will have history with the bears that they're after. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Watch them grow up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about, getting videos, running a camera. Bears are big. They have claws. They're curious. They like to wreck things and tear them apart. Any special camera considerations, like where you're hanging it, how you're hanging it, how high, perhaps, things like that?
Yeah.
Bear boxes, I guess. I think you put like a...
Yeah, bear boxes. So we use Moultrie trail cameras, like the Moultrie Mobile or Moultrie products. We've had a lot of success out of those cameras, and they actually sell they'll sell a bear box that you can get from them. We've had a lot of success with those. We don't lock them up. We just put a bolt through it, to where the bear can't pop it open. We have had unprotected cameras just get demolished. But once they're in one of those cases, we haven't had any issues. I like to hang my cameras a little lower. If you hang them high, the bears will look smaller. It's like you can't get it. I mean, for me, like I like to have them about knee high.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, because it's the protection factor is that bear box, And so if I hang them low, if I put them low, I can see more character about the bear. And especially the areas where I'm hunting, it's like I like to be able to see if they have a chest patch or something, so I have something to identify them.
Do you get a better scale too, like comparatively to like
the barrel.
maybe to the barrel or some other object?
Yeah. So you get a good comparison too. Yeah. So it's a little hard once you get your angles to truly judge. So I like it low, just so I can tell more about them. And it's cool to like feel like you got whenever you see a big bear and you have that camera low, it's like that's a really big bear. you know. And the other thing is, if you have it low, you can see other features to be able to tell if it's if you're struggling to tell if it's a boar or sow. If you hang it low, there's other things that you can see inside of the video to be like boar, you know.
Yeah.
So I like hanging them low. I also don't want to hang them high and hang them to where they're pitched down hard, to where hard shadows might set a camera off or something. Or if the wind starts really picking up and blowing, you're adding more movement to that trail camera. And so it's triggering just on that false movement, where if you're closer to the base of the tree, and even in a strong wind, it's like you don't get that ton of movement, you know, that you would if you hung it up higher. So a lot less false photos.
Yeah. Yeah. What about stand placement? Are you hunting from the ground? Are you hunting up in a tree? And then, like, I guess it might depend a little bit on, are you rifle hunting? Do you plan on bow hunting? Maybe you're setting your stand up for a little bit of both.
I really like to be up in a stand, and the reason is a bear, whenever they feel threatened, they go up into a tree, and so there's something inside of a bear where something up in a tree is like no danger kind of thing, where it's like a place of submission, whereas like a dog would be on its back. And so I feel like bears don't feel as threatened by something inside of a tree. I mean, on top of a tree, or in a tree versus on the ground. So on the ground, it might be something they have to contend with or deal with. But if it's in a tree, it's like, that's already dealt with. That's no threat, you know. The only thing is like you really need to be cognizant of the wind. And there's times where bears will come in regardless of whether they smell you or not. It's not like a normal thing. That's one of the reasons I like to go and bait consistently.
That's what I was going to say, but does it become normal? They do become conditioned to your scent being in the area? Like, I don't, or maybe even like, oh, that's good. That's the dude that brings the food.
Yeah, I think they're probably conditioned for that moment.
Okay.
You know, but that sustained, like, why is he still smelling so strong? You know, I think you have to really be wise with the wind. Not to say that a bear won't just choose to like go against his nose at times, but most of the time it's not going to be a great. It's definitely not prescribed to hang your stand to where the wind's going to be blowing to where those bears are coming from.
Will you? I mean, just like deer hunting, will you like? Yeah, I'm not going to sit today because I don't like the wind.
In that mountain, it's a little hard to know what it's going to do, and they were coming from every side. So in that scenario, it's like some bears are just going to know that I'm there. It would depend on the situation. If I was hunting on public land, I would probably be, and just hunting natural features, I would be a lot more careful. The fact that I've been in there, my scent's in there some, they do know it. Because, I mean, we're baiting in, I mean, it's still, I've baited in 100-degree weather. Like, it's smoking hot and steamy, and you get videos of these bears and they're just panting so hard, like these, you know, black critters, hot sun, even at night they're like panting. You know, it's just hot out there. And so, I mean, I've left plenty of scent. They know who I am, you know, kind of thing. And then I don't know if it helped me or not rotating other guys out all the time to where they had a surprise scent at the same time. Maybe it did. All things kind of came together, you know, for the good that year. He definitely didn't smell me, but our wind was swirling around, and it was clear that those bears didn't come and stay on the bait like they typically do. So, I mean, my presence was making bears uncomfortable, you know, but I think that pinch point, too, made it to where they were kind of locked in for a while. I mean, they were going left or right. They weren't going to get away another way. And so they just had to choose if they wanted to continue on their path and just not stay at the bait or not. I think we kind of had them locked in to where they had to, like, come at least somewhere inside of our area.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. What about, like, you know, other types of terrain? Are you, I mean, the spot sounds amazing, but are you looking for spots where you are getting a little bit more of a consistent wind that you can bank on?
Yeah, I mean, we could sit on top and move the bait closer to the rim of that top spot, the ridge, and hunt from the ridge down. That's something that we're considering. So, I mean, getting closer to the top of the ridge would be, you know, be ideal. The dominant bear trails were too far away for archery, though, to do that. So we had to go lower. What we noticed were the younger bears stayed up on top. The older bears, the more mature, heavier bears were down lower. And so it was one of those happy mediums where it's like, this is like the spot for sure. Last year we tried to bait higher, and we did get some bears on it. Guys had a hard time with baiting last year. There was just so much natural foods. And so it's kind of hard to compare those two bait situations just because it wasn't the same year. You know? I mean, muscadines come off and they hammer them, you know, like.
I don't know what that is.
Oh, it's like kind of like it's kind of like a grape.
Okay.
Yeah. Kind of like a wild grape, I would call it. Has like a pit in it. But, you know, they'll just, during that time, we had guys that their baits were doing no good because there was just so many muscadines around, you know, and you just can't compete with natural foods. Last year, the bait situation was so bleak. I was like, well, let me just go hunt public, you know. Like I had done a lot of scouting. I was on Onyx like crazy. Found a spot I thought would be good. I went and put cameras out, and man, I got bears out there swimming around, play fighting in the water, like just on this remote pond. And it got to.
And did you put those cameras out on the pond without bait there, and they were just in the area?
Yeah, it's on public.
Okay.
So like no bait there, and so.
Oh, you guys can't bait on public out there.
No, just private.
Okay.
And so I was determined, like, I know this is going to be a bear spot. Just everything came together. It's like dramatic, has cover. This is a natural, like, little faint saddle, thick all around, like, no water around. Like, this is an amazing spot. As you know, it was at least a mile from the truck, you know, and so my cameras had just been showing bears all the time. And then what it seemed like was that bears would travel in groups. They would disappear, and then one bear would show back up, and then not long after that, another bear. Not long after that, like for like 2 to 3 days, they would be in there and then gone. And I was watching my cameras, and a bear popped up on there, and I was like, I bet if I go sit there tonight, I'd see a bear. And so I went out there and got 17 yards from where these bears are typically coming in. And I had a small bear come in, got out there and swam out in front of me and everything. And I chose to pass him, which, I don't know, I just wanted to watch him, you know. It was just cool to see him, like, how it's cool whenever you're inside of the bear world and you know just how special that is, you know. It's like, this is so special, and that's not a huge bear. Like, it's just so special to just watch a bear do its bear thing out in the wild and know that all the scouting that I did, it's like, came to something like I have proof that my plan came together, even though I didn't like send anything. It was just such a cool experience.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's super cool. And that's one thing that oftentimes, you know, bait hunting or hound hunting affords a person is the opportunity and the time to be more selective, to yep, you know, this is a sow without cubs, or it's a mature boar, or whatever, what have you. And then again, like, they sometimes from people who don't hunt, you know, they think hunters, it's like, oh, just this bloodthirsty pursuit, when really it's actually the furthest thing from that. It's you are building a genuine connection and a love for these animals. Like you said, like, you could have shot that bear. Like, your plan worked to perfection.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah.
And I was just sitting on the ground on the stump. You know, like, I didn't take a stand in.
No
or anything.
kidding, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, I just went out there and sat on the ground on the stump and just, you know, like, worked out.
Yeah.
Know? Yeah.
I mean,
and hound hunters work harder than bait hunters. Like, nobody outworks a hound hunter. And those guys are true, like, woodsmen. Like,
that is dedication to a craft.
Yeah, that's a lifestyle. It's not a pursuit, you know, inside of my mind. And, you know, the funny thing is I think training seasons are so, I mean, they're as good as hunting seasons inside of their minds, I think, because they're in it for the hounds. You know, they're not in it for the bear. You know, they're like in it for watching their hounds do what they were designed to do. They're getting out there and like putting all their work and effort into them. And
you'll talk to some of those guys and they'll be like, oh, I haven't personally shot a bear in X amount of years, or I haven't personally shot a cat in X amount of years. Like you said, for them, it's 365 about the dogs, you know, and maybe occasionally they'll take one, but.
Well, and they take families, they take kids with them. Like, they're really community minded, you know,
For
like
sure.
huge hearts. You see it a lot here in Wisconsin to where you'll have groups that have terminally ill kids or, you know, people that having a hard time, and guys will donate their hunts to them through these different organizations. And typically you see it's houndsmen out there getting it in, and they'll even find ways to like carry them to the bay, the tree. And so, I mean, you just see like a community with just huge hearts and really people minded and people focused, you know. And I think it's interesting that whenever you find somebody that's so into animals, it's like people would think that they didn't care about people at all, but it's totally not the case. It's like there's rich communities of people that are really invested in their dogs, and it amplifies the sense of community, not like them in isolation, just them and their dogs and going into the woods, you know.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah.
Do you personal story. I was out turkey hunting this last week, and just going back, and I don't know why, but this made me think of it, talking about that bloodthirsty component. I had a coyote come in, and this is a place that I care about the turkeys. So there's probably people that are going to be yelling at me saying that you should have shot this coyote. But I was sitting there, and this coyote came up the hill. Again, I know we're not talking about coyotes, but he's like 20 yards. And I'm like, my first instinct, I was like, click. And I was like, I should probably shoot this dog because, you know, he's in this valley that I like to hunt turkeys in.
Yeah.
And I was like, God, this thing's cool looking. I was like, up in the mountains. It has no idea that I'm there. And I just held off. And I'm like, then it kind of started coming towards me. I'm like, let's see how close this thing will get. It got to 4 steps and was just like sniffing around like where I was. I'm like, I mean, who gets to be 4 steps from a coyote and have it essentially be unaware of your presence? And then I think he did start to win me a little bit, and he trotted down the hill, and then eventually he winded me and took off. And I was like, that was worth it. That was pretty cool. You know?
Well, and that's the thing that's really valuable about hunting over bait. And so, like, if somebody asks me, should I do this, or this, you know, I would say, like, spot and stalk. It's like there's a sense of, like, vast nature and just being small, you know, and just seeing beautiful areas you would probably not get out in otherwise. But if you're, like, wanting to go for the landscape and just seeing the beauty of the land, just, like, being still and just contemplative and stuff, you know, I think that's a great option. For bait, if you really value being a part of nature and inside of, like, that area, and just if you love just seeing animals and just getting close to them and seeing them, because on a baited hunt, we're trying to go after the most mature male that we can go after, you know, like that's the reason for baiting, or it wouldn't be worth it, you know. But inside of that, you're seeing a bunch of other smaller bears just doing bear stuff, just interacting, and there's nowhere else you would ever see that. The types of vocalizations they make, how they interact, how one comes in, has a ton of attitude, another one comes in, it's real meek and nervy. You just get to see some really cool interactions and stuff. Even after I've been on hunts where guys are done hunting and then they just ask if they can stay an extra day and just go sit in a stand just so they can watch bears, you know. And
why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't you? Yeah, you're already there. Like, you're in a world-class area. Somebody's already put in all the work. Like, and so, and if it's more of like looking for a sense of community, a sense of like going and enduring with other people and going and just not knowing if you're going to end up in a hole. Like, I mean, you have to go to where the dogs are. You don't know where you're going to end up. I would say hound hunting is, you know, the way to go. But inside of that, you can't just go out and go hound hunting. Like, you either have to find an outfitter who does it, or you have to find somebody and become buddies with that does it. But, I mean, you don't know what you're going to get into.
No, I think that's a misconception about hound hunting at times too. People think like, oh, that's just easy. You follow the dogs in the trees and you go get it. And you know, I'm speaking without ever having done it, but talking to a lot of people that have, and they're like, man, that was the toughest, most physical hunt that I've been on.
Yeah. I mean, and it doesn't. It's not the whole time that way. I mean, a lot of times what you're doing is you're going around and these guys know their hounds so well. It's like they're in the chase, like in the race with them. Like, and sometimes it's the sounds that they make. Like, they know, oh, this is that dog. She does this when this happens.
Right.
Like, they can tell you a play for play. Like, it's almost like they can paint a picture of exactly what's happening by just listening, you know. and then they track their hounds and see what's going on these GPS collars, and so they can see what this race is doing, and they'll be like, hey, this dog right here, she backed off. It must be a big bear. She only does it whenever like a big bear is there. Or she only responds this way when like a bear is this particular way, you know. And then you're going and getting as close to those dogs as you can on road systems if there's roads around, and then you go down to those dogs. Like I mean, you're 100% committed. It's not easy like people think it is. It's a lifelong commitment. It's also a commitment during the day. Like you got to be kind of like mentally tough, you know. Really, yeah.
Have you seen getting back to the bait topic, are there any differences between spring and fall? I mean, you've talked about, those mass crops coming off in the fall that,
there's not a lot of places to bait hunt in the U.S. During that time. You can do it in Idaho. And nothing else comes to mind of where you can spring bear bait in the spring. Other than that, you're really going to have to go with an outfitter up in Canada. In the spring in Maine on native land, you can go with an outfitter there.
Okay.
But you're pretty much stuck in the spring, except for Idaho, and I can't think of anywhere else. I'm just going to say Idaho. You're pretty much locked into going with an outfitter up in Canada. Yeah, or the ones in Maine that have access to those lands, those native lands. So we have a few in the magazine that do that. So I haven't personally baited in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
I've been on spring hunts, and I mean they're great. The bears are really coming into them. There's not a whole lot of natural foods that they're going to during that time. And typically when a bear comes out of the den, they're going to be looking to reactivate their gut, typically with like grass and stuff like that. And then they'll start hammering baits pretty well. So
gotcha.
From what I understand from outfitters I've talked to. So
that's super cool. Yeah, one thing that I've always thought would be a really fun hunt to do that I haven't done, and I probably should because we're pretty darn close here, like very drivable here in Wisconsin, would be going up somewhere in Canada, and doing like a guided, baited bear hunt, but also combo it up with, I love to fish,
Oh yeah.
And I mean, it just seems like, at least mentally in my head, like that is the absolute like perfect hunt to go up with a group of good buddies, and hunt bears all week and fish all week, low pressure. You like, in some ways, like I've pictured in my head, I'm like, this is like a hunting vacation. Like hunting really is like, you always have to burn vacation.
Yeah.
But generally after it, you're like, man, I need a vacation.
Yeah.
Right? Like that was hard. Like that was intense, right? Where that just seems like chill. Again, you're not getting the satisfaction of putting in the work.
Yeah.
To get that bait going. So
they'll let you help though.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
So at least while you're there, you get to do some stuff. But still, get up, like, you're probably not getting up at the crack of dawn. You're hunting the evenings and then just go out, get up, fish during the day.
It's such a great experience, and it's crazy the wild places that you'll find yourself in doing that. I view outfitters as, it's almost like they preserve those types of things that you would never get to experience otherwise.
Right.
And so you're going up here, and typically you are staying by water. Like fishing is usually like mixed into the whole, if you want to, you can either sleep through the mornings or you can get out there and just go fishing. And oftentimes you're in these just remote, hardly fished areas. Like you're in world-class waters, The first time I went on, we were wearing out walleye left and right. I mean, it was, and the crazy thing is that particular hunt, there was walleye everywhere. And then there was it was crazy how many mature bald eagles were around. Like you were just looking around, it's like, there's an eagle, there's an eagle, there's an eagle, And it was just such a great experience, And
on the hunts you were doing, like how early were you getting in the stand, and how late was it getting, or how late did it stay daylight that you hunt till?
Yeah, so typically we would go out around 2. Like the goal would be to get in the stand around 2, and you get picked up somewhere around, I don't know, 10
Okay.
at night. So I mean, you typically are spending 8-9 hours there, and it depends on what order you're getting picked up. If somebody else got a bear, like you have to be flexible.
Yeah.
One of the coolest experiences I've had, I was up in Manitoba, and it was after dark, and the guy they were picking up before me got a bear, and just listen. There was so many bears around me whenever it got dark, and just hearing them, like it was dark, and just hearing them everywhere was so out of this world. Like it was one of my favorite experiences, and I couldn't see a thing. I wasn't getting out of the stand, but
I think some folks might be hitting the panic button.
yeah. When you realize it's like black bears aren't anywhere the same as grizzly. Like I mean, really, I think they're more. I don't know. They're kind of like nervy at times. Like they're not going to try to be around a person. They're not going to be trying to be around dogs or civilization. They like the really wild places, the dramatic landscapes. They really are creatures of the shadows. It's almost like they're a shadow that moves, Mm-hmm. And so I'm not really worried about safety typically around black bears. On that bait that one time, I was like, I don't know. There was one time where a bear was curious about us, and it got a little too close. That same stand where I was, it was nighttime and there were bears everywhere. When I got in that stand, there was a sow, and she was huffing and puffing at me and just unhappy. And I got in the stand, and it wasn't for a while until I looked up and I saw 2 bears just hanging out in the tree. And so I didn't know it, but I was between her and her cubs, and she was just like chomping at me and huffing, and I was like, well, I'm going to get up this tree. I took it in for a minute, and I was like, she means business for some reason. I thought she just wanted to get back to the bait.
Yeah.
I was like, it's odd behavior, but she had 2 cubs up in the tree and didn't even know it.
Yeah. Now I'm getting up in the tree too. See, I'm not a threat. I'm in the tree too.
Yeah. She came back in and chilled, and eventually the bears came down. And whenever I got dropped off, whenever I got up in the stand, I took a picture of the outfitter leaving, and I went back and looked at that picture I took just to get a sense of the landscape. I was going to send it later to my wife Jolene, and anyways, I zoomed into that picture, and I could see bears, like 2 cubs up there, and one of them his feet were just dangling.
No
in
way.
that picture that I took, that landscape kind of photo.
Right.
Yeah.
That is awesome, man. You talked about water a little bit. How critical do you think is water for? I mean, I think it's pretty important whether I'm spot and stock hunting. I guess, like I said, that's the bulk of my hunting is spot and stock hunting, but it just seems like you definitely want to have some sort of proximity to water, whether that's a drainage with a creek in the bottom or what. Like, what are your thoughts on water?
Well, I mean, even some small spring thing would be good. And on top, like old logging roads and stuff, sometimes like they'll hold some water on top. If you can find water on top, that's really, really great. I know, especially
like, what do you mean water on top? Like,
so it's some sort of like pool or pond
Okay.
or tank or whatever the terminology that you use in your particular region.
pond's good for you.
Yeah, pond's good for here. So I mean, I really like ponds because you will find them on smaller water just to drink. Like maybe you have like some small hole that's holding water, but bears really like to get in the water. We've had trail cameras on elk wallows, and bears get in there, roll around.
I've heard a lot about that, like guys in New Mexico having cameras out, predominantly like looking for elk, or going on a hunt. Like, hey, this is an elk hunt, but get a bear tag because we see a lot of bears.
Yeah. So I mean, they love to do anything to cool them down. And I've got a lot of videos of bears just playing around in the water, like on that pond I hunted. So it's not just about them getting something to drink. It's like having a spot where they can cool off too. But I think water is very critical, or proximity to water. I think water's great. They'll drink out of anything, but I like having a spot where I know that they can get into water too.
What you got any bear hunts on the docket this year?
Yep. Next month I'm going to Wyoming on a black bear hunt. May shoot up to Montana, but if I'm honest, I'm probably going to be done after Wyoming. And then I'm planning a bear drive going on a bear drive up in Pennsylvania if plans, continue to be formed around Thanksgiving, and then over in Georgia, September, October-ish. Yeah, I want to go and hunt there without bait and just try to get it done on public,
Okay.
If Florida comes through with their bear season, if I could draw a tag, I'll probably do Florida in December.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that comes through. There's a lot of traction, it seems.
Not bear related, but I was in Florida. We did a little family spring break this year, and we're in this kind of like, subdivision. Like there was houses, but there was also like green spaces, like intermingled. I don't know if that's the right term for what it was like, but like just areas where lots of palmettos and stuff like that. And just like right off the main road, saw a bobcat.
Really?
Yeah, and I was like, I don't know. I don't usually I've only seen a handful of bobcats in my life, and I certainly, for whatever reason, didn't anticipate to see one on spring break in Florida. But
Florida's wild.
They're contemplating bear season, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, went to a couple.
Do you know what's been holding them back from it? Is it numbers? Is it public sentiment?
I think it's public sentiment.
Yeah,
because they have the numbers. Well, I mean, I think they're wanting like 180 something is the quota, if I remember right, that they're proposing.
Okay.
There's some good proposals going on there, but it would just be like, any weapon. Month of December basically is what it seems like. And then after the first season, they're looking at doing a training season for hounds. And then if that goes well, I think they're planning on doing a chase season the year after.
Oh, cool.
A pursuit season with hounds.
Yeah,
so,
hopefully they can do that, and maybe it's easier said than done, but just educating the public on some of these things. I know I've talked to a lot of people about bear hunting, and kind of like what you said earlier on, people are like, oh, you can eat those? I didn't think you can eat those. Like they think it was, it's purely like a, like, oh, I'm trying to get the hide or get a rug or whatever. I've had people say like, aren't they endangered? Like, no, we got lots of black bears, so I think there's just like a lot of misconceptions, misinformation, disinformation. Sometimes I think that information is intentionally supplied.
100%.
Intentionally to mislead folks, to promote a, anti-hunting agenda.
Mm-hmm. The types of comments that you would see. So Florida did 3 virtual meetings where they took public comments, and the comments that you heard were just from people that were against the hunt were just outrageous. Like they even wanted people to a warden to follow along every hunter with a body camera and like be along every step of the way. It's like, okay. Or they wanted them to go and instead of letting people hunt them, somebody was suggesting that they go and capture them and sterilize them, and so I don't know. It was just unrealistic things. Right. And for some reason, they thought that bears taken with archery tackle was cruel. And I was like, I think it's the best way to go, right. I mean, like, no sound. You just feel this, like, something happen, and you're like, something's weird. I mean, bears don't go far if you, like, with archery. Like, lungs gone. I mean, typically within 20 to 40 yards, I find whatever bear that I've used archery on. Mm-hmm. And even there was one poor shot that I made, my first bear, and we gave him space, and it was a straight-up gut shot, and we found him within 100 yards. We just didn't pressure him. But, I mean, I think archery is the way to go inside of my mind if you were going to be there, especially on bait, within a short, amount of space, like if you have, say, 20, 30 yards. But the thing about bears is they don't duck the string. And then they also, like, they don't move around like a prey animal, so they're not moving around as much. And so you can typically be a little bit more selective on waiting for the right shot. And they are complicated because they can move in every which way. They're real bendy.
Right.
So you have to be aware. But, I mean, I think that's a great way to take a bear.
I think, over bait with archery equipment, like we've talked, it's a pretty controlled setting, right? There, you do have a little bit of time, Not always, right? Like, I'm sure there's plenty of guys who be like, yeah, a lot of time I waited for the right shot and the thing wandered off, right?
Well, you don't do that in the bear rut.
Exactly.
Yeah, in the bear rut, those bears will in Canada when I've hunted the rut there, those mature bears will come in and they'll either just peek their head out, see what sows are there if they can wind them, or they'll like run at the bait, chase everything off, and go check them out in the woods. But you got to be ready to go during the rut for a mature bear.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So they're still coming in, but just coming in like in a different way with maybe a little bit different motive.
Food's not on their mind. Yeah, yeah, 100%.
Going back to your hunts this year, we got a couple firearms on the table here.
Yeah.
Varying form factors. Why don't we go a little bit into your kit and kind of what you're using on different hunts here?
Yeah, so I just built this one. This is I got a Bagara action and barrel. This is their like pure carbon barrel. I got this one in a 6.5 PRC because I wanted something that was really light but would be capable. And so this is a pretty light rifle on this backcountry hunt from Wyoming. And the optic, I'm using more of a higher power. Like I think it's the 5 to 20 or 4.5 to 22.
Yep.
Razor LHT, so it's a little bit lighter. And I got the MDT chassis, the Hunt 26 with the carbon magnesium, factor. And then I dropped a Trigger Tech diamond trigger in it. Like it's a pretty sweet rifle, but I'm looking for in a Western hunt, I'm looking to do something further out, and I wanted something that was lightweight, that wasn't going to punish me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I chose this, and, I'll run it suppressed. I left it out in the car. But I run a suppressor on it. I think all in all, it's probably around a 9-pound gun. I haven't put it on the scale yet, but just on paper, probably around that 9-pound.
That's impressive for, essentially a fully featured long range chassis rifle topped with a scope with a, fair amount of magnification on there. Fully featured, scope built for dialing long range. I mean, that's a lightweight. That's a lightweight system you got there.
Yeah, I mean, in the suppressor, I'm running a Diligent Defense suppressor, and it changes the way the recoil is too. So I like shooting suppressed. Just the recoil is different. It's quieter. I feel like when I shot my deer last year, it's like they had no idea what was going on, like where it came from. So I feel like I would potentially get a follow-up shot, hopefully, if it came to it. So I think it's a winning thing. I mean, that weight, I factored in the bipod and the suppressor. And so I'm hoping it's going to serve me as well as I think that it will.
No, it'll be pretty, like you said, you got the bipod on there. It looks like you got Arca rail on the bottom if you want to shoot off a tripod.
Yeah.
You could do some serious work with this thing.
Yeah, I've shot it off of one of my Vortex tripods. It was nice. It's nice to have that built in and be able to go the full length and get it exactly where I want that balance point to be on the tripod. And then we have this last year they changed the regulations in Arkansas where during muzzleloader, what was formerly known as muzzleloader season, we can use alternative weapons now.
Gotcha.
And so we can use straight wall cartridges. So I've kind of gone off into straight wall cartridge mode. And so I built this other rifle last year. Oh, I didn't build it. I got it from CVA. It's a 350 Legend in their Cascade. And then for this one, this is more like the places that we're hunting down south, or I'm going to probably take this to Georgia with me this year, and maybe Pennsylvania, depending on the terrain. I'll probably carry multiple, and just scope it out. But I really like this 2 to 10 power scope I wanted low magnification. The other thing is I'm more and more thinking about taking other people whenever I go. Like I'm not as into, I don't know, for some reason I'm just not as into doing it myself
Like
anymore.
I got to get one.
It's like I've done a lot of cool stuff. Like I really want to start taking other people. And one thing I really like about this Viper is that it's not an illuminated reticle where it's the full cross. It's just a dot. And so I can turn it on and be like, hey, do you see that red dot? Put it right here. Squeeze, not, all right, you see that cross there? put that black thing on this other black thing,
Right,
you know,
right.
or even deer, anything dark. Like I just like the ability to just tell somebody, just see this dot.
It's a little more intuitive.
Yeah, it's not as they're already doing something new that they're not used to, and anything on top of that, it's just undue pressure, you know. And that's one less instruction, that something I have to explain. And then I just got this Scout in the 400 Legend, and I put one of the new dots on there that you guys came out with. I forget. I think it's the Defender XL.
Yeah, Defender XL.
Yeah, and so that thing really cheeks well. That I'm using this. I'm really wanting it to be more of a brush gun, more of places where I go where it's really tight. I don't want any magnification. I want to be able to like keep both eyes open, see what's going on around me. And I think it would be good for hound hunting too, to mount just a dot on top, so you can be more aware. You know, you want to be aware of like where the hounds are, what's going on, and so I think that's going to be a really great. And it's kind of it's a short rifle, like it's a small form factor, and it would just be really easy to carry around through the woods wherever I go.
I think that'd be another good one for a new hunter, a youth, single shot rifle, red dot scope, you know, hunting in situations where it's a little bit more, you know, like a baited hunt where a little bit more predictable. And again, with the dot, put the dot here, squeeze the trigger. It's a single shot rifle. You're not having to worry about, you know, multiple rounds in the magazine or something like that. Just like simplifies it.
Yeah.
And it's lightweight and handy too, like you said.
And if I'm hunting in an area where there's probably going to be a larger bear, I'll probably shoot copper and just, you know, keep that mass together, let it really punch through, you know, or at least a bonded bullet, you know.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think I feel like copper I can shoot lighter and get a lot more for the weight of it.
For sure.
Out of it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of copper or bonded bullets. That's generally where I gravitate towards on bullet selection, and a lot of it comes down to what's out of those two buckets, which one shoots best out of my rifle.
Yeah, I really liked y'all's ballistics gel test with the shoulders in it, or the scapulas.
That was a fun one.
Yeah,
that was cool. Yeah,
I was like, I need to start saving some bear scapulas.
What about talking about the rifles? We're talking about shoulder blades, but let's talk about shot placement a little bit, because I feel, well, I know my thoughts on shooting bears.
Yeah.
But
well, and whenever we talk about shot placement, we're talking more for like, this is like the tried and true, like more room for error shot. But we really like to go for lung shot.
I agree.
You know, we do.
I agree. 100%.
Middle of the middle, and forward just a little. You know, forward like a couple inches, maybe like your fist width, in front of the middle. And then we're not talking about middle like I'm not thinking about the droop if it's a big bear, like the gut. It's like that low line, top line, dissect it again, and just come forward a little bit. They just don't go far without wind.
No.
You know. And
I mean, like you said earlier, same thing with an archery shot. You shoot them. I mean, I've only seen one bear die with the bow, but it's about as quick as I've seen a bear die.
Yeah.
I mean, it was 2 hop. I mean, he just hop, done.
Yeah. I mean, last year with my bow, I got a 427-pound bear, and he went like 17, 18 yards and done, you know. And there was a good blood trail. Like you really, and I like to get 2 holes when I can. You know, it's the time that you would think maybe not 2 holes is if you were hound hunting, you know. So if you were going to shoot a bear, and you might have something behind that bear, but other than that, it's like go for 2 holes, you know, whenever you can, because bears don't bleed. Their fat can seal stuff back up, you know. Like you can have a good blood trail and then nothing. So I mean, like the bigger the hole, the better, and you want that trauma in there too, like that good shock. That's the only thing like about these bigger, these straight walls. It's like I'm gonna see what it'll do. You know, I think on a smaller bear, no problem. But if I shoot a bigger bear, it like I know people love 4570s and they're like a classic bear gun, but they're also the gun that I hear outfitters say they lose the most bears with.
Interesting.
Yeah. And the thought that they have, the ones that I've talked to, is they're thinking that maybe there's just not enough velocity to really cause it to open up, and cause all the trauma inside and then cause a big enough exit hole to where it really bleeds.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, and what they're saying is like, they were like, if you put in enough time, you'll probably find the bear. And they say that recovery, like I talked to one of my close outfitter friend up in Saskatchewan, and he said they typically go to water after that. So he's like, he'll go and start looking at ponds and stuff after there's like a bear that the blood trail just stops. And I was like, that's an interesting behavior,
Yeah.
And I think that's another time to like maybe focus on water. If you shoot a bear and the blood stops, maybe go look for water. If there's known bedding, like deer go back to bedding, same thing. Like they'll run to places they feel safe at, and yeah. So, but anyways, I just say that to say like I'm interested in how these straight walls do. My dad killed a bear in Manitoba 2 years ago with the 350 Legend. So I know it'll do it. He was shooting solid copper, and he got, complete penetration. And so I know it'll do it. I'm considering like what ammo. I don't know. I just need some more time with it to see what it does.
Very cool. Talked a little bit earlier about eating bears, and maybe we'll finish it off with this. I think bears are absolutely delicious.
Yeah.
And we've talked about it many, many times, probably every time we talk about it on the podcast. It's like how good they are to eat. Do you have a favorite recipe that's like a go-to for you?
We like to keep it simple. Bear nachos.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, really inside of our house, we cook mostly with ground meat, and the thing that might change that is we had an article last year inside the magazine, and it was talking about being able to eat bear medium rare, and so.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and so this guy, his name's Brett Benton.
I haven't gotten that
buddy of
brave
mine.
yet.
Yeah, well, he does it all the time, and what he found was he found the regulations on pork and what it says from trichinella, like or trichinosis, what the different temperatures that it dies at. And so it dies at different temperatures at different lengths of time it's at that temperature. And so what he started doing was using the sous vide. And so he would look at what the regulations were, and then he would put it in a sous vide, a hot water bath, and get it up to that temperature and sustain it for a long period of time. So It's like it definitely dies, and then he'll put it, I think he smokes it, a lot of his stuff, and puts a sear on it too alongside that. But he swears by it, and he hadn't caught it yet, and it's been several years. So, but
I mean, it would make sense. I mean, what those guidelines were, I guess, are in place for. I mean, it's the same thing you're trying to kill. So, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's something to consider. It's not like I'm suggesting it, but because it is something you want to be careful with how you handle the meat. I would just assume that they do have it,
Right.
And I don't think it's like chance it. But
I'm not trying to find out the hard way.
Yeah.
Like, guess it did.
Yeah. But it is good to be like, some of the comments we would get is like, bear's not the best meat because you can't cook it medium rare. I don't want it like cooked blah, blah, blah.
I think that's the beauty of bear meat, though, is you can cook the heck out of it and it's still good.
Yeah.
So,
especially those berry bears.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I've been lately trying to perfect, which it may just kind of metamorphose into some sort of like my version of like an Asian dish, but I've been making bear bulgogi lately.
Oh, really?
And it's like,
yeah,
like incredibly simple in a way, but it turned out good the first time, but I'm like, I'll tweak it this way, and then it turned out better the second time, and then even this last week, I was like, oh, I think I'll do this and this and this and this. Like I took the base recipe. I'm like, I'm going to do the base recipe just like the recipe is, and then just modify it from there on out.
I mean, we say that you can just replace beef with bear.
I agree.
You know, any recipe you find that calls for beef, just do the same thing with bear. Yep. You know, and you'll be good. I really love ossobuco with bear.
Really?
Yeah, in the Instapot.
Never done that.
Yeah, it's fantastic. In
fact, I didn't even think about doing that.
Mm-hmm. It's really good.
Okay.
So I mean,
do you have to work? Do you have to do? Are there the same considerations for trichinella with that or not?
Well, I mean, no, because you're cooking it so long. But inside the Instapot, you're getting it up to temperature.
Oh yeah, never mind.
Yeah. And so, but ossobuco, it might be one of the best bear dishes I've had. It just falls off the bone. You have all that marrow and stuff inside of and it's just root vegetables with it. It's great. And I think we served it with a risotto.
Are you using like the like what parts of the bear are you using for that?
The shank. So like we would just cut the shanks like you would
of the front legs or the rear or both.
I think we did this. We mainly used the front legs, I think.
Okay,
but either would work.
Yeah,
you know. Yeah, but
I guess, and you're keeping all that muscle and sinew on that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and
that's
just,
cool.
You know, I used a saw and just like saw it off and throw it in the Instapot. I did an article on it a couple years ago with the recipe. I'll have to send it to you.
Yeah. I'm super curious about that. And I'm glad we had this conversation now before. I think I'm gonna go bear hunting here in a few weeks.
Yeah,
so
that'd be great.
I might be saving them shanks.
Yeah, you should. It's worth it.
I mean, I saved them before. I just kind of boned them out. Though.
Yeah, bone everything else out and just right the kneecap.
That's a good, very timely tip. Hopefully timely tip.
Yeah.
Hopefully I get a chance to do that.
Yeah.
Man, anything we missed? Anything else you got going on with the magazine or?
No, I mean, I think our social media is pretty fun.
Okay.
You know, so on Instagram and Facebook. Remington's doing a few videos. They did a few videos with us this last spring in Oregon, just talking about some general stuff about bear hunting in the West. They're releasing that every other Wednesday on their YouTube channel. I might have cracked a few jokes here and there. It's kind of fun. But no, that's subscribe to the magazine. It's great. It's a great resource. Kids love it.
Where do people find that? They just
bear-hunting.com.
Okay.
You can go to bearhuntingmagazine.com too and find it. But the cool thing is like kids typically steal the copies of the magazine. So if you feel like you didn't get it, just go check kids' room.
Okay.
It's funny, like Ruben, we send it to him and he's like talking about how much his son just like gravitates to it and just grabs it. And I was like, man, we hear that all the time.
That's awesome, man. Well, it's cool. It's a cool magazine. It's cool. I mean, I think it's just cool that there's a magazine dedicated to bear hunting, as there should be.
Who would have thought that I'd be involved, though? You got to watch out what friends you have.
Yeah, exactly.
They pull you in.
Yeah, right. Well, awesome, Colby, man. I appreciate you taking the time to come out to Vortex here and chat bear hunting. One of, if not the coolest big game animals out there.
Yeah.
And maybe we've inspired somebody to finally,
pull the
trigger and go on that first bear trip. And or maybe we've inspired them to go on another bear trip this year.
I'll also say like an outfitted hunt is a great vacation.
Yep.
They cook your meals for you. You're in a lodge, or tents if you want that. But I mean, for the price, a lot of guys take their wives on those trips.
Well, and you bring up price. I know we're trying to close it out here, but a bear hunt, oftentimes they're pretty darn economical when you compare it to other things that are out there. Mm-hmm. And you're getting an incredible experience, like you said. It could be darn near a vacation.
Yeah.
Bring your spouse. Sometimes that softens the old blow at home a little bit.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's all upside with bears to me.
Yep. 100%. I agree.
Cool. All right. Well, hopefully everybody out there agrees. Thank you for listening. Like we said before, hopefully we've inspired you to go on your first bear hunt or maybe your 20th bear hunt. We don't know. The important thing is that you go. We'll see you out there, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye.
There you have it, folks. Thank you very much for listening. As usual, give this video a like if you liked it, comment something below, and give us a subscribe to the Vortex Nation podcast channel. It would mean a lot to us. Also, why don't you give us a follow over on Instagram while you're at it, at Vortex Nation Podcast. We'd love to hear from you over there, and we'll keep you updated with all kinds of cool photos and videos from our adventures that we do here. Otherwise, we will see you on the next one. Thank you again. Happy hunting and shooting, everybody. Have a good one.